Hey students and parents, this week for math, we're going to talk about calculating length and strategies for reading a ruler. So there are two main systems of measurement in the world. For most of the world, they use the metric system, and this is based off numbers of 10. In the United States, our customary measurement is based on halving and doubling units. So let's start with what most of the world uses, which is the metric system. So if you're looking at this ruler, we're going to be measuring in millimeters, centimeters, and then going out to meters, and even further than that. But let's start with the small stuff first. Millimeters. If we look at this ruler here in the numbers, we can see it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then keeps going. It's just a piece of the ruler. In between the big numbers, we have these tiny little dash marks of the millimeters. They're very tiny. If we add up 10 of those little marks, that's going to give us 10 millimeters, which is equal to 1 centimeter. If we count the centimeters up to 10, that's going to give us what's called a decimeter, which is 10 centimeters. If we look at this arrow pointing to the number 2 on our metric ruler, that's going to indicate 2 centimeters of length. If we look at where the arrow is pointing this time, it's going to go all the way to the number 10. So that's 1 decimeter, which is also equal to 10 centimeters. So the metric system is pretty easy to understand. It's always based in units of 10. The US customary system is based on the 12-inch ruler. So it's units of 12. We have 12 inches on that ruler. That's going to equal 1 foot. But let's start with the smallest. We're going to be talking about fractions of an inch. So when we look at a ruler, we're going to be dealing with these measurements. 1/16 of an inch, which is usually the smallest distance on a regular ruler. If we double that, we get 1/8 of an inch. If we double that, we get 1/4 of an inch. If we double that, we get 1/2 inch. Double that, we get 1 inch. And then we begin counting the inches until we hit 12. This will give us a foot. So if we look at this simplified ruler, starting from this point, which is the end of our ruler, and we count the big numbers, that's going to be our inches. So if I was pointing to this and I said, what is the length of this? That would be 1 inch. And if I cut that inch in half into 2 sections, and you'll see this mark on a regular ruler, this is a simplified ruler, this would be the 1/2 inch point. Going even smaller on the US ruler, if I cut that 1/2 inch in half into 2 pieces, now I have 1/4 of an inch. And you can see if you add each of the 4, that gives you a total of 1 inch. And again, going even smaller on the ruler, if I take that 1/4 of an inch, chop that in half, now I have 8 pieces and 1/8 of an inch. And again, if I count all these, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That gives me 1 inch. And finally, the smallest measurement on a US ruler usually is the 1/16 of an inch. So we take that 1/8 of an inch that we had, cut that again in half, and now I have 16 little pieces. If I add all 16 of those up, that gives me 1 inch. So again, the 2 types of measurement systems in the world is metric, that's used by almost everyone in the world. That's based on units of 10. So millimeters, centimeters, decimeters, all up to a meter and even beyond. Measurements of 10. In the US, we use the inch. So we're talking about 1 inch, and we can make that in half to a 1/2 inch, to 1/4 of an inch, to 1/8 of an inch, to 1/16 of an inch. When we get 12 inches stacked up together, that gives us a foot. And we go on to a yard, and we can go on to a mile. So when we're dealing with the US system, there's a lot more involved with fractions, and it can be a little bit more tricky. With both measurement systems, make sure when we measure something, we're measuring carefully and correctly. So that's a very brief overview of strategies to read a ruler and calculating length. I'll be giving you these slides as well as some practice activities, including measuring things. And if you'd like me to post more information, let me know and I'll do that. If you want to Zoom with me over this lesson, just click on the link in Schoology.